Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Wildkard and thank you for subscribing and following my contents. If you would like to buy me an instant coffee, hit the join button down below. Otherwise, let's get on with today's content. It's Tuesday, it's Newsday. Let's have a look at what's happening in the world of rugby. First up, we got some bit of a terrible news. Wainui, a Super Rugby player for the Chiefs, I believe, has got himself involved in a bit of a car accident and unfortunately passed away at the tender age of 25. And this is quite a big shock to everybody because this guy is very, very talented. He played in the Super Rugby this year and he was outstanding this year, playing against in the Super Rugby Trans-Tasman, played for obviously the New Zealand Maoris, and he could potentially had a big bright future for the All Blacks. And yeah, a bit of a car accident. He was the only person in the car, and unfortunately, yeah, he was not with us anymore. And he was a very spectacular player in the Super Rugby. When he played against the Waratahs, he scored 5 tries. It was insane. That was one of the most impressive individual performances I've ever seen in Super Rugby. And it was against the Waratahs this year. And yeah, hopefully, so a bit tough news for everyone. But, it's just unfortunate of life. Anyway, let's move on. So obviously the current situation in the world means that a lot of the players has been away with the family for a very long time, and a couple of players in the Wallabies squad has opted to go home instead of traveling with the squad to the invasion tour. One of the biggest name is Koroibete. He has decided to go back to Melbourne instead of traveling to spend some time with his wife. A lot of the Wallabies players has been away from their family for a very long time, especially like the Melbourne players, as Koroibete, who plays for the Rebels. They have been away due to lockdowns, being literally camped in a different state as a result of the lockdowns. So it's very, very tough for these guys to be away from the families. Now that following the Super Rugby, they were not able to... Following the Rugby Championship, they're pretty much not able to go home, have to travel straight back out to the Wallabies spring tour. So yeah, so these guys, it's understandable. I don't blame him. The unfortunate part for Koroibete is that he might not be able to play for the Wallabies again, as he is signed with Japan for the next 4 years. Let's see which team was that he signed with. He signed with Japan's which team did he sign? Yeah, Panasonic Wild Knights for 4 years. So under the current rules, he is not able to play for the Wallabies. Although there could be exemptions. The current exemptions to players in the Wallabies, who circumvented the Giddo law, which prevented players with less than 60 caps to play for the Wallabies if they are not contracted to play in Super Rugby under Rugby Australia. If that rule could be extended, to be scrapped, or the current rule that give exemptions for players to circumvent that rule is extended, so we could potentially see Koroibete play again for the Wallabies. But otherwise, he could be out for 4 years, and it will be no Koroibete for the Rugby World Cup. However, we do have a couple of really big wingers coming up through the ranks. It will just give opportunity for some of these players to grow. Jordan Patea, Tom Wright, both are extremely good players, and I do think they probably now have an opportunity to prove themselves to secure that wing jersey for the Wallabies. But yeah, that's pretty tough. And outside of American Koroibete, there was another Rebels player that also opted to take a break from the tour, which was let's see, who was it? Pon Fa'a Mausili Fa'a Mausili. He is also out. He's also a Melbourne Rebels player. So yeah, these guys, completely understandable. And as a result of this, the Luke Moorham, who's currently in Bristol Bears, could potentially step in as a backup winger for the Wallabies when they link up in Europe. That's like the Wallabies are literally scrapping players as they're traveling overseas, trying to call up all allies to get the squad bolstered for the spring tour. This is a pretty tough time for the team. So yeah, will be interesting to see how that travels out for the Wallabies. And next up, we have the obviously more news on the tour. It's been very hard for a lot of these teammates. You know, you're traveling to the All Blacks. Despite being fully vaccinated, all the players, they have opted for very strict protocols in their traveling schedules because they do not want to risk getting the virus. I mean, it's a bit tough. This is just the plan they have. They have opted for apparently a bus with a topless bus, just give more ventilation to the players in the bus, on the bus rather. They are also looking at just staying in hotel rooms whilst during their off times to watch sports, the NFL or whatever in the hotel rooms. Despite there are pretty much no restrictions, my understanding, in the US, they will still be putting themselves in the bubble, stay in the bubble, being quarantined. Talks about Sam Kane talks about watching NFL games from the hotel lobby, in their bubbles instead of from the hotel. Not even the lobby, just from the hotel instead of actually going out and having a bit of fun. Yeah, really, really tough conditions for the All Blacks, and not sure how that's gonna affect their performance. Let me know what you think. I feel like if you're just locked down in a bubble, I personally find it really hard to get motivated being in lockdown. And although I do regular exercise, I am getting fat, and that's not because that's just the sheer fact that being in lockdown has really mentally drained me a lot. Despite the fact that I am doing all the exercise that I normally do, I'm just not really doing it to the intensity that I'm at home that I would be doing if I was at a gym. Basically, that's my personal experience. So I am physically getting unfit despite still doing my regular routine in terms of exercising. So the same thing could potentially happen to the All Blacks. Traveling a lot, being in lockdown, being isolated. It's just gonna put a toll on you. You go to the gym, you do your bench, you're just not putting in that 110% that you would normally do if you were, with your family, with your friends, having a good time in life. You're probably just gonna be doing your sets, I wouldn't say phoning it in, just getting it done and getting it over with and move on. So it could potentially affect the performance. We shall see how that plays out in the spring tour. So Sir Ian Foster has voiced his disapproval for the 50-22 and goal line dropout for Test rugby levels. I do agree with Sir Fozzie here. I always thought 50-22 was a bit of a silly rule for rugby union, especially because how chaotic the rule is and how much kicking there already is in rugby union. You don't need an incentive for a team to get their lineouts back just for kicking the ball out inside the opposition 22 if you kicked it from your own half. That is just getting your opposition to do a defensive lineout inside their own half. It's already massive reward for a good kick. Getting the ball back for that is just extremely, way too good. Way too good of a move. We saw this played out a couple times in rugby championships. South Africa did that against the All Blacks in the third test. The Francois Stan made one of the kicks, which literally put 3 points on the ball for the Springboks, followed up for 3 points for the Springboks. So massive game-changing kicks that ordinarily would have been already amazing if the All Blacks had a defensive line out. Getting the ball back was just way too much. So 50-22 was really stupid. And also we saw in the Rugby Championship in the same game where All Blacks was playing against Springboks, is seemingly that Vili LaRue kicked the 50-22 and the referees didn't give it. So one of the sideline Waterboys, technically he's a assistant coach. I don't think he just runs the water, but he's technically like a trainer. Was yelling at the sideline referee saying that was 50-22. But because the thing was, yes, Vili LaRue did kick it 50-22, but the ball was taken back. So it was like just so much confusing, like stuff like that just makes it so much more confusing, so many more things to track, whether the ball went back behind the 50 line or not, who's taking the ball back, and it's just so much more unnecessary complexity added to the game as a result of this. So, and then that referee was being, a lot of people talked about that the water boy shouldn't have done that to the referee, which is absolutely completely agreed. But to see like that is a pretty big mistake and pretty hard to judge for both for everyone, right? Like everybody's confused on whether that was 50-22 or not, whether the ball was taken back to the 50 or not. It's just really, really confusing. For the goal and dropout, I think it's not as bad, but it's still really, really confusing as well. Like it's all about who takes the ball back the line, and it comes down to like a really weird, I guess, a play style where a team don't want to go for the try if they can't guarantee it. So it's like a really weird like rule. It's a really poor rule, because if you go over the try line and you get held up, it's a dropout. You don't get a scrum. So you just lost your opportunity to score. You just lost like 20 yards on your attack. Probably more than 20 yards if the kick was good. You just lost a huge opportunity to score a try. So you get this weird situation where a team who cannot guarantee a try being scored, rather just not score and try to milk a penalty instead. It's just a really, really messed up rule. So these two rules are just really, really dumb. They should just scrap both of them. So yeah, I mean, it's just me. I mean, I love scrummaging also. So I don't know how you wanted to minimize scrums. I mean, what they could do is I do think that they should maybe pause the clock when you're setting up the scrums, because if you watch any of the old school rugby, the scrums takes like 10 seconds. And then nowadays, with all the safety, all the timing and all the slowing down of the packing of the scrum, they probably should just pause the clock to prevent, so that the scrum has to be so then you're not just wasting game time repacking scrums again and again. So maybe the first packing, you don't pause the clock. You get your 30 seconds to pack the scrum. But then if there's a repack, you should just pause the clock. Like there's really there's nothing wrong with repacking the scrum, because you do want to make sure that there's a fair contest. You want to make sure there's safety. But if a team is abusing that just to run the clock down, or if that's just whatever reason, sometimes the turf is too soft because of rain, just pause the clock. If there's a repack, pause the clock. Just the first scrum, you go ahead. Second one, pause the clock. Easy solution. There's no reason for you to completely try to minimize or avoid the whole activity that makes rugby so special, makes rugby so good, because because it can be abused for time wasting. Just pause the clock. You are able to pause the clock. It's not 1930s where it's difficult. Yeah, it's you have the ability to pause the clock, right? So there's absolutely no reason for that to not be applied. I agree with Sir Foster here about his opinion. And also there was more incident with the water boys that was involved. So again, this is actually really bad in the Premiership, in Gallagher's Premiership in Europe. So one of the players, the ball went out, the Wasp player. The ball went out, and one of the Wasps, water boy, was like blocking the ball. So what's his name? Slade. Let's see who the players was involved. The player was involved with Henry Slade, yeah. So the Chiefs, Henry Slade. So Slade was trying to get the ball, and the water boy was like blocking him. So you shouldn't do that, because you're literally influencing the game, as Henry Slade cannot get the ball and do a quick throwing. So you're literally just like breaking, like actually affecting the game that you're not supposed to be affecting. Like, this is really poor. Like, this water boy should probably be banned from being on the sideline, period. He should be fired from his job. Like, this is absolutely not acceptable. If you like, the South African one was like arguably bad, but I think maybe a fine would be sufficient because he thinks the referee made a wrong decision. He was trying to tell the referee that something that he may have missed, and he was probably overly assertive and aggressive about it. So maybe a fine for that. But this, you are literally standing in the way of the player, preventing him from getting the ball in a timely manner so he could do a quick line-out throwing, and thus giving your team an advantage on field. That should be banned. He should be fired and banned. That is absolutely abhorrent and should not be allowed in the game. You cannot have someone who's not in the game affecting the flow of the game on field. Straight up, should be banned and fired. Disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. And there has been stories in the past where New Zealand, if you played in New Zealand, especially if you're playing against Crusaders, apparently they have water boys touching the ball as they're outside, so you're like you cannot do a quick throwing. It's just like just in what do you call it? Just the rule is that if the ball, you can only do a quick throwing if the ball is not touched by anyone outside of the game. So the water boys will apparently years ago, I don't think they don't do it, like Crusaders water boys will go and touch the ball intentionally, so that disqualifies the team, the opposition team, from being able to do a quick throwing full stop. So yeah, so that was pretty bad. That was a lot of controversy like many years ago. But this is also pretty bad. This guy should be fired. Like, it's just unbelievable. Next up, so get your popcorn. More players has come out criticizing Warren Gatland's game strategy against the Lions. So Tom Curry, an English player, came out, basically said there was a lot of talking, essentially, about a game plan that they did not implement. So it was just basically it was really obvious that what the South Africans was going to do, and they talked about solving it, but they just didn't do anything to actually address it. And Warren Gatland was to be a bit heavily criticized for playing into South Africans' game and not really adjusting accordingly. He did make a bit of adjustment in the third game to no avail, to losing the game. So there was a few players came out, criticized him. The biggest one was when there was some big ones where players, Henderson from Ireland, I believe it was, Ian Henderson from Ireland, criticized Gatland for obviously putting Courtney Lawes on the field, who seemingly was, unfit or not really as good as him. A bit, Ian Henderson a bit salty the fact that he didn't get the spot, so criticized him for that. But obviously his own boy Dan Biggar, the Oscar winner for Wales, comes out, tries to back the coach, saying that, in hindsight, everybody is perfect, and no one's gonna make a mistake in hindsight, and we should have, he's back his boy Warren Gatland, basically saying that, in fact he said, if they had such a strong opinion about it, they should have voiced it at the time. Yeah, you tell Warren Gatland in the Lions tour that he should change his strategy and not select Courtney Lawes instead of selecting Ian Henderson. Yeah. So Warren Gatland is currently assigned to be the Lions coach for the next tour to Australia. A lot of criticism on his head for this botched Lions tour this year. In fact, Dan Biggar is one of the players that I thought was Warren Gatland's, homeboys that was given a free spot at number 10 position, and he wasn't really performing. I thought Farrell played better in all the matches that he'd played, and I hate Owen Farrell. And I thought, obviously, Finn Russell, when he came back from injury, played a lot better than bigger. The whole strategy, the being, the whole, essentially the whole, everything Tom Curry is talking about with being not playing into South African strategy is the fact that Dan Biggar it's played around Dan Biggar kicking goals, right? So Dan Biggar is part of the problem. So for him to come out and say that, oh, you should have said something at the time, you're being the number 10, you probably shouldn't have. Yeah, I thought this pretty poor form for Biggar. I hate this guy, honestly. I really think he's just I don't know. I think he's just such a, I don't know, like a bit of a weasel. I don't know if that's even the right word, but I really don't like him. He's just so unlikely, likable. He is the one that literally Gatland plans the whole strategy around, and he has the balls to come in and say, you should have said something about it if you didn't like it. It's just so up himself about, he literally has everything handed to him and tells other people that you should have said something, so arrogant and up about himself about that. I just really dislike him. Nonu made his return on weekend on a bit of a lighter note. He came back with some of his friends to help out one of the provisional teams, the East Coast in New Zealand. I'm not familiar with these teams, to potentially break their drought of a 54 match losing streak. So they were brought in, the big name Nonu, the greatest inside centre in history of rugby. Okay, he's hands down the best ever. And he's back. He came back at age of 39 to try to play, but the team had already locked up the win when he came onto the field. But it was pretty good to see him. He's a big name for New Zealand rugby for a very, very long time, and he is the GOAT of inside centre. The amount of line breaks that this guy makes is insane. So yeah, the prodigy of Tana Umaga, and yeah, made a bit of a return. And King Carlos, King Carlos is signed to coach with the American team, NOLA Gold in 2022. And yeah, it's good to see that King Carlos is still at it, looks still quite fit. And yeah, so it's a bit of news from King Carlos. He will be going to America. He was at the Blues for a bit, and then yeah, he's going to America. A lot of fans will be King Carlos fans. That I remember King Carlos as he was literally like the best playmaker on the field for his time. His goal kicking wasn't that great, but man, like he made that ball between the legs to Rocco Thoko try at the Rugby World Cup. That was one of the most famous moves ever in rugby, and that was King Carlos. And who can forget? It was one game where I think he was played against the Crusaders, where he put the ball down in the corner just to run the clock down, and then he'd slot the goal anyway from the sideline, one of his better kicks. So yeah, King Carlos going to America as the coach. And finally with second last news is that the World Rugby has reverted their rule on banning long tight leggings. Not only like these leggings that Aaron Smith is wearing, banned during the game. You can only wear short leggings, because these leggings were considered too slippery to actually give the players a bit of an advantage. It makes them a bit harder to tackle. So they've actually banned the leggings, but they've actually now reintroduced it because Joe Marler had a bit of rant about getting injured playing on 4G pitches. I'm not too familiar about what the 4G pitches actually are. My understanding is they're artificial pitches, so they're like AstroTurf. And they obviously, if you get tackled on it, you get a massive burn marks. I've played on AstroTurf in NFL pitches before, and it's really painful. It's literally like rubber. I don't think 4G pitches is that bad, but I've played on NFL pitches where it's literally like rubber, and you just burn your leg. You just have massive cuts on your knee, on your legs every time you get tackled. It's pretty bad. So they've reintroduced that, allowing men to wear these long shorts again for Astro pitches. But they just allowed it again. So they've walked back on a ban that's been in place for I think 11 years now. I think the rule was, my research said it was since it was introduced in like 2010, so they've reverted that. And yeah, so a very long-standing rules being reverted because of astral pitches. So they're obviously, working to make sure that the pitches are changed, like, not to have teams not play on the main solution would be to have the games not play on these 4G pitches. But if unavoidable, I guess they're allowing people to wear protections in the form of tights, long tights. And finally, the Wales team will have 8 Lions players for the Wallabies, but a number of their English players, as I mentioned last week, is not available to play the All Black game. And yeah, so, the players, I don't know what to say to this. I think one of the things people, some of these English clubs need to understand is, if your players don't play the All Blacks, you're just paying money. You're just paying overhead of a bunch of nobodies. Literally, you're nobody. If your players don't play against the All Blacks, if they never won a game against the All Blacks, I don't care how much money they earn. I don't care how many tries they earn, how many participation trophies they win in the Premiership. They're just nobodies. The All Blacks is the world standard for top quality players. If your team, the players in your contract, don't play the All Blacks, don't make a name for themselves playing against the All Blacks, they're just nobodies. Absolutely nobodies that you're paying under your contract with participation trophies. The All Blacks is the bar. The All Blacks makes a player. If you don't play, just a bunch of nobodies and a waste of money for you. Anyway, guys, that's about it for the news for this week. Thank you for watching this video. The Wallabies is playing Japan this weekend, and the All Blacks is playing United States this weekend. So I'll be bringing you the team lineup when they are announced later this week. Thank you for watching this video. I do appreciate it if you would subscribe and post a comment. Let me know what you think about the articles this week. If I missed any news, let me know down below. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys a bit later this week. Cheers.